All right, hi everyone. We are here with Council Member Robert Gallegos of District I, just having an open conversation on animal welfare. So first off, thank you so much for coming with us today, and just
You're welcome.
yeah. And again, we want to stress that he's not our council member, so we really appreciate that.
Thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. So to start, can you just tell us your background on animal welfare?
Well, again, I'm Robert Gallegos, council member for District I. I represent downtown Edo, most of the East End, the Hobby Airport area, and a little bit of I-10 area over there off of Maxey Federal Road and I-10. And I was born and raised in the East End, and in regards to animal welfare in the East End, stray dogs have always been a problem, parts of District I. So that was something that I wanted to tackle, becoming a council member. 5.5 years ago when I became council member, the first week that I was in office, I was volunteering with Barrier Dogs, one of my staff members and I, on a Saturday, trying to pass out literature to pet owners to show them to be responsible pet owners. And that early Sunday morning, my staff member the next morning, Sunday, calls me and says, "Councilmember, did you hear the news?" I said, "What's that?" And he goes that a lady in Glenbrook Valley, which is part of my district, she got mauled to death by 3 pit bulls early in the morning, Sunday morning. So needless to say, even though that was something I wanted to tackle as a council member, that went on the top of my list, to the fact that even though it happened a week after I was in office, but it happened under my watch. So therefore, a couple of my staff members and I, we ended up going to Austin to tour Emancipet in Austin. And I was told by Emancipet that they had been trying to come to Houston, but did not have any luck coming to Houston, to get the funding to come to Houston. So after touring Emancipet, it was clear that they're a great organization. They provide low cost for free spay and neutering. So they were saying it was going to cost about $250,000 to bring their gooseneck clinic to Houston. So I worked with former council member Ed Gonzalez. And with our district service funds, I was able to give $100,000. Ed Gonzalez put in $150,000, or put in $100,000. And then Council Member Pennington, who represents the Memorial City area, West Houston, they don't have a problem with stray dogs. But I always give credit to Councilmember Pennington because he didn't have to do it, but he gave $10,000 out of his district service funds. So we had the money in order to bring Emancipet to Houston. So therefore they brought their gooseneck clinic. They manned it with the technicians and the vets and what have you, and they were stationed at Ripley House of Navigation in District H, which was Councilmember Ed Gonzalez's district at the time, but right on the border of my district. So they were there for over a year, and very successful, to the point that they now have a brick and mortar clinic in my district, right there off of Lawndale and Wayside near Gus Woodham Golf Course. And I understand they're in the process within the next 2 months to open their second clinic over there off of Monroe and the Gulf Freeway, and they'll be providing dental care also at the second clinic.
What year was that, whenever all this got started?
I'm guessing, I can't recall offhand, but I believe it was probably 2015 or so, 2015, 2016, when they opened, when they brought the gooseneck clinic to Houston.
How big of a difference has it made? Have you seen?
It's you can go to Emancipet on a Saturday morning, for example, and you'll see a number of individuals that are in line to bring their dogs to get wellness or spayed and neutered. So if the word's getting around that this is a clinic that for those that can't afford taking their dog or cat to a regular vet, the word's getting around that Emancipet's another alternative to take your dogs and cats to.
I know that you had a lot of good feedback with that, and
Well, we were talking about before we went on camera, you were saying a lot of people they want to do the right thing. But if it's a choice of feeding their family or paying their electricity bill or paying their rent, they're going to choose, to do the
Right.
early, they're not going to choose to go spend hundreds of dollars to get their pet fixed. What do you think the gap there that we can do more on?
Right, yeah, and that's what I pointed out to former Mayor Parker. And this past week at my pop-off on the city council, after the council session, I mentioned the Healthy Pets, Healthy Streets that we had in District I this past Saturday at Rondo Park. I got there close to 9 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning, and there was a long line of individuals there just to get a voucher, to get their dog or cat spayed and neutered. And I was told that there was people in line as of 4 o'clock that morning, waiting for their voucher. And I was told that by 9 o'clock, they had given about 200 vouchers to pet owners. So I had made it clear to Mayor Parker, and I made it clear to Mayor Turner that people will do the right thing, and we can provide them with the service of getting their dogs and cats spayed and neutered. But like you stated, if they have to pay their rent or their gas bill or feed their kids, that's what they're going to do. They're not going to spend their money to take their dog and cat to get spayed and neutered. But if we can provide that service, they will do the right thing. And that's a solution to try to cut back the stray dogs that are just roaming our streets.
You worked a lot with barrel dogs as well, right? And now Unity for Solutions and Big Fix Houston.
Right.
Do you see more of an engagement from the community regarding animal welfare?
Yes, we have 11 council districts in the city of Houston, and I'm one of the council members that represents one of the 11 council districts. And after looking at all this way back when we were trying to get Emancipet to Houston, it seemed like out of the 11, there was 5 council districts that have this problem with stray dogs. So again, Emancipet's going to be opening their second clinic, and I believe they are hoping to have a total of 3 clinics. But knowing that a second clinic is soon coming on board, is only going to add and help in regards to addressing the stray dog problem in the city of Houston. And when I go to Civic Club meetings, for example, again, I don't have this problem through my whole district. There's just certain pockets in my district that I have this problem with stray dogs. So if I happen to be at a Civic Club meeting where this pocket's at, that's one issue a resident may bring to my attention as a council member. What are you doing about the stray dogs? Well, there was one instance, like I had mentioned, I was on my way to a meeting one morning, and there was this pack of about 5 dogs. And I mean, I was in my car. My windows were rolled up, and it was hot, and I had my air conditioning on, but there was no way I was going to open that door and just walk in. Because those dogs were mean, and they were coming close to an elementary school. So I got hold of, like I said, I was on my way to a meeting, so I got hold of one of my staff members. They in turn called BARC to try to get that addressed. And at that meeting, I brought it up to the person who I was meeting with, and she told me on her way to work she had saw the same pack of dogs a few blocks away on her way to work. So, it's things like that we have to address.
We also know that you were a big reason why BARC the city of Chelsea got what was it, 2.5 million?
I believe it was 2.5 million increase around 2014, 2015. This is back when Mayor Parker was the mayor. An issue that we've had is that BARC was saying that they didn't have funding that they really needed. So that was something that I had placed, and my colleagues at that time voted in favor of the increase for BARC, which helped, but I mean, more funding is needed, but it did help.
How much of a difference has it made? Because I know since then, you still get a lot of people calling with strays, but have you actually seen a big difference in the stray population then?
I think it has helped in the sense that, I mean, you still see strays, but not as much as you used to. So I'm hoping in time this will be a solution. I mean, you have other rescue groups and welfare groups, for dogs that come in also to help. So I'm hoping that with the change in the county, and hopefully the county and the city will work together to try to address this. Because as you know, dogs don't know boundaries between the city and the county. So we need a partnership between the city and the county to address this problem, because the county's having the same thing in unincorporated areas.
Great.
Big problem. So we were talking earlier before we went on camera about the incoming calls and how BARC places urgency as far as what calls, get
Right.
priority and who gets actually serviced. What do you think about that?
Right, like I had mentioned, when the resident from District I, that was mauled to death by the 3 pit bulls, my staff and I, we went and toured BARC, because I was trying to figure out, okay, how does BARC work? So we went and toured BARC, and they have this big old board on the wall when they're taking calls. And if someone calls and says there's a dog that's walking on my street, reporting this dog astray walking on my street, well, it goes on that board. But throughout the day, if somebody else calls in and says there's this mean dog right outside an elementary school, then that's gonna go on top of that first call. And then if a constable's office calls in and says, we're about to evict somebody from the apartment and there's a dog in that apartment, I need y'all to come and get this dog, then they're gonna put that on top of that person that called saying there was a dog just walking on their street. And that's why when I go to Civic Club meetings, sometimes a resident will say, well, I called BARC to come pick up a dog that's on my street, but no one ever comes. Well, it's because it just works its way down that list.
We get that a lot from people, from the rescue community saying that BARC doesn't actually respond to these calls. And recently, this case in your district, where that Chip N Snip took in, Ryker, he was found, and we showed you the pictures, that very bad condition. And that's one of the things we wanted to ask, or just see what the problem in miscommunication was. Someone.
How many people saw the dog and either called BARC or didn't know who to call, or
didn't care, or didn't know what to do.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's some areas in the district that people unfortunately go and just dump dogs, and it's very sad, that people will do something like that. And, unfortunately, these dogs are just there and they start roaming the street, and people, like you said, don't care to report it. But it needs to be reported. It needs to be reported to make sure that these dogs are given the opportunity of trying to survive. And it's sad that people just go and dump dogs.
And then regarding that, would you be in favor for possibly increasing the penalties for, cruelty or dumping dogs?
Yeah, I would have to see if that would have to be a state issue or a local issue. If it's a state issue in regards to the penalty, then of course we would have to work with our legislature. But if it's a city issue, then we can do something like that, then yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I don't even think a lot of people know that we have the Harris County Cruelty Task Force. It's just that information is not out there.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I know that there was supposed to be a summit between the county and the city, and I'm not sure if that ever happened.
It did. It was in 2017, the story I was telling you about before we went. And a bunch of different people in the rescue community, at least 75 people got up and spoke, and it was Ed Emmett, Dr. White, the shelter for Harris County, Greg Daminoff, Director of BARC, and Mayor Turner. And it really, all these different rescue community people got up, and we had a time limit on how long you could speak. And everybody got up, kind of said their piece of what different issues different people had seen, how we could work on it. And it got to the end, and it was a thanks so much for coming. And that was it. And, we never heard a follow-up as far as, what Ed Emmett and Mayor Turner had talked about, or, either of the shelter directors had talked about as far as where are we going from here. It was great in theory. It was a great but not so great in practice.
Yeah.
And
to work on this problem, we need to work together in regards to the county and the city, put our resources together. I have asked to see if there's that possibility, because I was told that the Texas A&M is the only college in Texas that offers veterinarian license, and so if that's the case, then I would hope that the city or even the county can reach out to Texas A&M students that are veterinarian and say, okay, once you graduate, if you come and work for the city and the county, somehow you will reduce your student loans or something, you know, for a couple of years, you know, just to get them to work with Emancipet, to get them to work with BART, to get to work with the county.
And there's a huge veterinary shortage. A lot of people don't realize there's a shortage of vets.
Right, to address the, you know, spay and neutering, you know, because what I'm told is that when Emancipet does have a vet, I mean, that's just a lot of time spent, you know, on the spay and neutering all day long, to the point that they just get burned out. Yeah. So we need to bring in more vets. And I think if we can work together to maybe offer something to the graduate saying, okay, you come and you do this for a couple of years, you know, you get your student loans reduced or something. You know, I'm hoping something like that could be worked out.
That's a great idea.
One of the other things I always like to bring up is the Hispanic community, because there's not a lot of literature on the resources available now. And what district guy is about 44% Hispanic?
Well, actually, it's close to 80%.
Is it now? We were looking at 2017 numbers, so yeah, I would.
80%, that's a lot. I mean, do you feel like there's a big barrier for the language, you know, in just the...
A lot of the literature is printed in only English, as far as like, now Barrio Dogs, and there's a couple editors that do a really great job of translating things, but we've seen sometimes with different things, it's like the people that need this, you know, don't even, aren't seeing it because it's, you know, not in the language that they can understand. Do you think that there's a gap there? What do you think is?
Well, like you said, Barrio Dogs and other groups, you know, they do provide bilingual literature, but yeah, I mean, it would be a lot. It would be helpful if other organizations also provide bilingual literature services. And that's something that I'm assuming BARC is doing. You know, I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure they are. Because due to the fact that, again, in my district, nearly 80% of the population is Hispanic. And, you know, or at least getting the word was out there in regards to last Saturday's Healthy Pets Off the Streets. Like I said, there was a long line of individuals, you know, of people there.
Wanting to do the right thing.
Yeah, wanting to do that right thing. And like I said, they started at 4 o'clock in the morning, arriving to get in line to try to get their voucher. And then not only last Saturday, I mean, this has happened before with another Healthy Pets Healthy Streets events. Same thing. People are in line. People get there early trying to get that voucher. So again, the city and the county need to put their resources together to provide this service of getting dogs spayed and neutered. I mean, that's one of the main things that needs to be done to address this issue.
Yeah, we brought up before we went on that the response that we've kind of gotten sometimes is, oh, we want to focus on, you know, the practical problem of too many animals, and the way that sometimes the city has done that is by focusing on adoptions. They've pulled money from the spay and neuter programs to focus on adoptions. And it seems like you're on the exact same page as the rescue community, saying the solution is, the practical problem is too many animals, and how we fix that is spay and neuter and getting it where it's needed and low or free to the residents that need it.
Yeah, and I've been told by the rescue groups that one issue, or the reason why Houston has this problem is because of our weather. I mean,
that's a big,
it doesn't get that cold like up in the north. So if you're just going to be providing adoption services, you're never going to tackle those. You know, we need to do the spay and neutering. You know, so that's something again that I'll be pushing. Again, I'm up for re-election, and so the next 4 years, I will be pushing that to see what we can do to improve that.
Is there any way we can get more education on animal welfare in the schools? Like, just getting them a pass for veterinary, you know, services or something like that?
Well, I know Barrio Dogs does go into the schools too, and they do it in English and Spanish to try to educate the kids. And I totally agree. I mean, we need to go into the elementary schools and the middle schools and let them know the importance of getting your dog and cat spayed and neutered. So that way they can in turn take it back to their parents and their grandparents and let them know, hey, we need to take our dog to get spayed and neutered. So yeah, definitely. I mean, educational is one main issue also. We need to make sure that we addressed in going into schools, to educate the kids, so that way they can go back and educate the parents and grandparents.
I don't know, we keep saying dogs, but it's not just dogs, right? We have everything, animal welfare encompasses everything. So,
Right.
have you seen any other animals in need in your district? Because I know mine, District B, we have horses and, you know, just a lot of different things.
Mhm.
Do you have any other animals that you've been told about?
Well, I mean, feral cats, you know, we have our fair share of feral cats in the district as well. And some horses, but yeah, I think, District B has their fair share of horses, what I hear.
Because one of the things we like to bring up is just the horse carriages in downtown, and I know this is not in your district, but we still like to, you know, push for better treatment of animals. These horses have been work horses, you know, 8 hours a day, no food or water, and the water that they're given is filled with chlorine or.
Well, they pulled it from the aquarium, like in a bucket. It's chlorinated water that, you know, it would, you know, there's some groups that want it banned completely. I don't think we're at that point yet, as far as just, you know, world culture, not just Houston, but I don't think we're at that point. But there are current ordinances that are being broken, completely violated. The horses have sores on their legs and aren't giving fresh water. And one of the groups that went out there, they were told by the horse carriage driver that the reason why they couldn't give them fresh water, they couldn't carry it on board, is because it was too heavy. And the amount of water that they would need weighed less than this big generator they had for all these lights on board. And we go, do you really not have, is it that it weighs too much, or is it just that, you know, you've got a different focus? You want, you know, your carriage lit up and you don't really care about the care of the horses. We kind of, you know, what do you think, how do you think that the ordinances that are already being broken, how could that be enforced? If, you know, bark has been called and that sort of thing, and it's an obvious violation. Who was it that said that they had noted that it had been violated? Like, it was somebody with the city. Greg Travis said that it was noticeable violations.
Yeah.
What can we do to get those things that are already being violated actually enforced?
I know that there were some speakers at public session.
Yeah,
this past one.
Yeah, I think it was this week or maybe last week. But I know that Council Member Travis did state that he would like to look into it to see regarding the ordinances of making sure that the horses are treated right. So he's going to be looking into that. You know, in regards to if there's any violations, I'm not aware of. No one has brought any violations to my attention. But again, Councilmember Travis said he was going to be looking into that. So hopefully to find out if there are any concerns, and if so, then of course we need to address it.
The reason we bring it up is just because a lot of people didn't know that this was even a problem, that horse carriages are still going on. And I'm sure that there's different things in your district that are happening. Again, just like this dog here, Ryker, you know, they're going on and just don't really know. Because again, they don't know how to.
And it's pockets of things, and some things you just, you know, you don't see in your normal day to day.
Yeah. I mean, I heard the individuals when they came and spoke and said they're concerned about the horses pulling carriages. But I feel like that my concern on that also is the horses, where are they being kept? I mean, for example, there's somewhere along the freeway, you're going down the freeway and you see these horses, and it's hot as anything outside, and they have no cover. They're just standing there. Now that's cruelty. I mean, they're just standing there. I mean,
In the heat.
They have no shed or anything.
I've seen it in the rain.
And for me, that's what needs to be addressed. You know, because I mean, I can imagine. I mean, you know, one of us is standing out there all day long.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's what this is. My.
So with the recent flooding that occurred, your district, it doesn't really flood, but in certain areas.
Yeah, we have our some areas that were impacted by Hurricane Harvey. This last flood this week, luckily, you know, we had a few houses that got impacted, but not like some other areas. And then in Hurricane Harvey, a little bit of our northeast part of the district got impacted. A little bit of an area close to Alameda Mall got impacted. But overall, we did fairly well.
What we're running into is there are not many shelters, public city shelters that emergency, right, that take in animals, and people were being forced to leave their animals behind. you know, by first responders, and how can we
Bridge that gap.
Yeah.
I mean, my suggestion is, you know, after we've already had 2 or 3 500-year floods, we need to figure out exactly where was these floods impacting the city, to try to find a location within that area that hopefully, again, it's a partnership between the county and the city to provide shelter for animals, you know, for dogs and cats when flooding like that does happen. So I would think, you know, if it is partnership between the county and the city, it'd be somewhere that in the city but close to unincorporated Harris County, so that way residents that live in the county can also come and leave their dogs at a shelter. So that's something that we would have to address to figure out where a best location would be at. If I'm not mistaken, I think during Hurricane Harvey, NRG, didn't they provide a section in there for dogs?
It was, originally they were not, and then Ed Emmett came in and said, okay, we've got to do something. You know, these people are standing outside on the streets, you know, with their dogs, and basically forced the hand of, no, we've got to let people come with their dogs, which, I mean, it makes sense. And we were in a discussion whenever, what day was it, whenever the flood happened? Was it Thursday?
Yeah.
Thursday. So Friday, we made a post, Rob made a post on his page about, okay, you know, or is this a widespread issue? Are we seeing this happen a lot? Does anyone know the names of the shelters that accept animals or not? And people pointed out that there are federal laws. There's a federal law that was passed after, what was it, the hurricane in Louisiana? 13 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So there was a federal law, but it was very broad, and it really just kind of touched on FEMA and said FEMA has to help the lower level governments be better prepared to take care of animals, you know, very broad. And then there's a state one that, but it only, once again, covers shelters. It doesn't cover first responders having to pick up animals. So like, you know, they go to a home and it's great to have it to where they have a place to go, but if they're not being picked up in the first place, it kind of defeats the purpose.
Right.
You know, I don't know what the...
And then there's people saying that there should be a penalty for leaving your dog behind, but again...
And other states have done that too. Meg,
Right.
come here.
And
Smack her.
And then people don't know that a lot of times they're being forced to leave behind, so...
In other states, I think it's in Florida that if you leave your animal behind in a disaster, you're fined. There's a big fine for it. But it's so funny because we were going, other states, you know, you get fined, and in Texas, you're being forced to leave them behind in some instances. We just go, where is the gap? And we probably need to do more research as far as what's been successfully done in other states as far as laws. But I do think you're right. It probably that does need to be done at the state level instead of the city level.
Yeah, yeah, that's my suggestion, is to try to make sure that the state, you know, sets up a state law, so that way it applies throughout the whole state. Because unfortunately, in the past, when a municipality does provide a city ordinance, the state can come back and say, well, why did you do that? You had no authority to do that, so, you know, we're removing it, you know. So all that work and effort that's put in, the state comes in and says, you don't have no authority.
Can't do that.
Yeah. So I think the solution would to try to work in the state to make sure that they cover the whole state, and that way we know that everyone is going to follow the same law.
And we brought that up, you said the same sort of thing about SB 295, because we've talked about it on almost every one of these sessions, is making a local version of SB 295, which is basic shelter, water, and length of chain. But you once again said that it's great in theory. No. Would it be would it accomplish anything if the state were to come in and?
Right. Yeah, because I know y'all had pointed out that there was a state legislator that was against that. And trying to keep that from happening in the state.
It did.
Yeah. So if a municipality would pass it, and then you have these legislators that are saying you have no authority to do this, you know, we're going to take that authority away from you. Then all that work and effort. You know,
It's been nothing. All right. I think we covered everything.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So we just want to say thank you so much again for meeting with us. I mean, again, you're not our district leader, but we really
you're talking to a lot of people.
And you've done a lot. And hope you continue to do a lot.
Well, thank you so much. Looking forward to it.
Appreciate you coming out.
If you guys have any questions, please let us know.